Alright, so greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and it's time for another one of our French and Indian War video, next one in the series here. And today is another beautiful spring day, March 22nd. So back behind me, once again, you can see the Blue Mountain, and right there, that hump is what the hell they call my mountain. We'll get to that in a moment. But today, we're planning on visiting another couple of fort locations: Fort Henry, Fort Northkill, and Fort Dietrich Snyder. Also a few other stories of some of the Indian raids in this area. And in a little bit I'll show you, I'll throw up a map, a Google map of where exactly I am. I'll have the spot where I'm parked here. This is the intersection of Bay Shore and Bennett Streets. I should say we are in Berks County, Pennsylvania today. Some of my other videos were over in Dauphin County and Lebanon County, kind of moving along, you know, this mountain range, following the forts that head up that way. And on one of these forts, we will actually be able to get to the actual location of it. You know, a lot of these forts are on private property, and I can't like go right up to them, but there's one that's on public property, Fort Dietrich Snyder, so we will be able to hike to there. I think I filmed that one in the past, several years ago. And I grew up just across these fields, so I'll talk about that in a moment. There's a big truck coming. We'll let the truck pass. We'll let that big guy pass. Yeah, out that way, that out there is round. It's called Round Top. I grew up just across the fields there. And the interesting thing is, the first fort we're going to visit today is called Fort Henry, and it is just up that way. Like I said, I grew up down this area. This is my home area. And as with a lot of these forts, they were placed at a gap in the mountain. There is no gap in this mountain back here, but there was an important Native American Indian trail that went over the mountain here. It was called the Topahakan Trail, and I filmed that trail in the past. We drove the whole length of it. So that's why there was a fort place there, Fort Henry. It was right along that old Indian trail called the Topahakan Trail. Later on it was called the old Shamokin Road. But I grew up right next to that road. I often drove my bike past the location of Fort Henry. So we'll drive up there again to where the marker is, at least. Got a few other things to say about my place, and then we're gonna move on to the actual location of Fort Henry. Yeah, so like I said, I grew up out that way, so in this area, you know, the history of the French and Indian War is known. The farm I lived on was the oldest farm in this township. This is Bethel Township, and it was founded by a guy named George Bayshore in 1748. So it was here during the French and Indian War, but I don't remember any stories of it being attacked or people being killed there, probably because of Fort Henry just being up that way. Yeah, so right up, going up the mountain there is where the Topahakan Trail went. And I did a video too. There's a place called Pilgrim's Rest where there's a nice spring up on top of the mountain. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw up that map of the area. I'll have this spot marked. I'm gonna have my farm marked, the old farm I lived on, and where the location of Fort Henry. So I'll go ahead and throw that up now. All right, so we are gonna go ahead and drive up to location of Fort Henry. I know I took you there last fall when I first bought this dash cam. I took you on a little drive, I think, and we went up. No, that's when I filmed the Topahakan Trail. That's right. That's when I showed you the marker for Fort Henry. We're going to go ahead and show it again. And this was one of the larger forts along this line of the mountain because it was a major route over the mountain. Like I said, the old Indian Trail, what they called the Topahakan Trail, and then the old Shamokin Road. So it was an important location. Yeah, these roads bring back all kinds of memories. I used to ride my bike down this way back in the day. You can still see the mountain up there. I've climbed up that mountain for you several times, that hump there. I think I flew my drone up there for you once too. Okay, like I said, we are on Bay Shore Road, and I'm going to be turning on to Route 501 now. Sometimes it's called Lancaster Avenue. And this is the modern highway that takes you over the mountain. And straight ahead, the modern highway veers off to the right. This currently is a Topahakan Trail. And the old trail goes straight ahead on what's called Fort Henry Road, appropriately. But like I said, the modern highway just curve off to the right. You can see the road sign, Fort Henry Road. Nowadays, this is a dead-end road. And off to the left up here is Swope Road. That's the road you would take to where I used to live. Not gonna drive there today. I showed you that last fall. We're gonna keep going straight on Fort Henry Road. And the marker is actually just a little ways up here. Yeah, right by this little shed. I'm actually going to drive up, turn around, and then we'll stop here and look at it. Yeah, so right there is the marker for it. I'll zoom in. I'm not going to go over there. Fort Henry. The French and Indian War. And it would have been located, who knows, maybe back down that road somewhere. I've read that they never really found a location, but some sources said they know where it is. I'm sure if you went back there with a metal detector, you could. But it's clearly posted, private property. So, not gonna hang out here too much because I am parked in the middle of the road. Yeah, so that's Fort Henry, or as much as we're gonna be able to see of it. It is private property, so you know, if you do check these things out, just respect that. You can see the marker from the road. Yeah, there's some interesting things about that spot. I had read that there may have been an Indian village back there too. Like there's a spring up there where they found, well, not recently, but back in the 1800s, they found a lot of flints in that area, which suggests the Native Americans were living there. And I read an account that someone halfway up that mountain, that someone found an interesting site that could relate to that as well. I might have to go looking for that sometime. They found an area that was cleared of rocks, like a little plateau area that someone had set up. This was back in the 1800s. Alright, I'm heading back on Fort Henry Road. We're gonna hook up with 501 and I'm gonna start making my way to the town of Charlottesville, to the location of one of the Indian massacres, the Hostetler family. At least to the marker, historical marker. And I'm going to take the back way. And just up ahead, I'm going to take a left on the airport road. We're just north of the town of Bethel. It would be faster to get to Charlottesville by taking the highway, but today's a back roads kind of day. I'm also going to take you to a place called Bloody Springs Road. I think I might have told you at the beginning of the video, I forget. And as we're driving along, I do want to remind you the purpose of these forts, in case you're jumping into this series kind of midway through. But you know, this dates back to the 1700s, the French and Indian War. You know, October of 1755, there was a massacre, the Penns Creek Massacre. I filmed that video, and there's a whole bunch of subsequent Indian raids, and these forts were built as a response to that, to protect the settlers in the area from those attacks. That's why they were built. Most of them were built in 1756, early 1756. A lot of them lasted only to like 1758, when a treaty with the Indians was made. I think it was called the Treaty of Easton. Look at that beautiful old mill there. Yeah, check out that cool church. Yeah, we're now on Old Route 22, east of Hamburg. Sometimes it's called the Hex Highway. And that historical marker is not too far down this way. It's just before you get into Charlottesville, near where Roadside America used to be, if you're familiar with that. It was that huge model railroad place, which actually shut down last year because of circumstances. So we'll be there shortly. Alright, so here we are. I'm not going to spend too much time here because it's kind of a busy road. Yeah, I think I made a mistake. I think I said east of Hamburg. We're actually east of Strausstown. Hamburg's further on down that way. You can stay on this road, so east of Strausstown. Alright, I'll probably just zoom in on the historical marker here in a moment. Yeah, there you go. The first Northkill Amish, the first organized Amish Mennonite congregation in America, established in 1740. Well, this is not the one. Oh yeah, it does mention the 3 members of the Jacob Hostetler family were killed near this point. So I'm going to tell you more about that story later on when we get to a more quiet spot away from the traffic. There's actually interstate traffic back there too, so I want to get away from this spot, but near this location, like I said, behind me is where Roadside America used to be, and Charlottesville is just down that way. But this is in that area where this massacre occurred. So I'm gonna tell that story later once I get to another location. So from here, I'm gonna get on Northkill Road. There's actually a creek down here called Northkill. So a lot of things are named after it. We're gonna head to the location of Bloody Springs Road. There's a name for you. All right, so we are headed up Northkill Road. Well, Northkill Road. And I'll go ahead and throw up a map of the location of that marker where we were. I know some of you like to see the maps. This actually takes us over the Interstate 78 here. And you can see the mountain up ahead there. That's where those forts were located. That line of defenses. And Fort Northkill is up this way. But we'll get there. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna check out Bloody Springs Road. There you can see a sign for the Northkill Creek. And right up here is our sign for it. Bloody Spring Road. Not sure if that's the name of the road you want to see when you're out in places like this. Out into the woods. Yeah, but it gets that name, as you may have suggested, from the times of the French and Indian War. You know, there was a number of massacres that occurred in this area. You know, the Hostetler family was one of them, but that was a bit further down. And I think the Bloody Spring is named specifically for, I think, what's called the Spats family. There's a number of families in this area that were attacked and massacred during that time, and thus, you know, obtained the name of Bloody Springs. I guess there's a spring somewhere in the area where one of those homesteads were. Gotta get shaded out there. Bloody Springs Road. It's kind of a long, kind of winds about different directions out here. I know I made a video years ago on this spot. I think I got the Hostetler family confused with the Spats family in that video. But with road signs like this, you can see how history lingers. Even, you know, 250, almost 300 years later, it's still remembered. You know, a lot of people may not know why it's called Bloody Spring Road, but that is why. You know, local lore and tradition knows it well, but, you know, someone's visiting the area, and they might think, well, why would you name a road that? That's not very nice, but it's from the French and Indian War, from that time period. So it's like, you know, places are remembered in, like, road places and name places, town places like that. So it's kind of interesting. And yes, there are some haunted stories about this place, you know, typical stories, you know, people's cars stopping, people seeing orbs and cold spots. You can read about that online. I don't really buy into most of that. And just note too, like, this is the Northkill Road, over there's Bloody Springs Road. Keep going up that way, it takes you to that parking lot for the Sand Springs Trail, which I filmed recently and even did some of that underwater footage. That's just up this way. This is a beautiful place. Lots of beautiful streams out in this area. But anyway, we're gonna head to the next location. We're gonna head to where Fort Northkill was located. I think my face is kind of shaded out there. And like I said, I will tell you about the Hostetler family, but I have a location. We're gonna tell you more about that when we get, as I'm hiking to another fort, Fort Dietrich Snyder. I'm gonna tell you about their story. It's not gonna be the most pleasant one. And I could tell you about the Spatz family. There's so many massacres that happened along this frontier. A lot of them are very similar. So sometimes when you tell one story, you've kind of told them all. And not that they're all exactly the same, but they're very similar. So I'm not gonna be telling, there's dozens and dozens of these stories I could tell. I'm just gonna give you a sampling. So I'm not gonna tell you everything, but I will tell you about the Hostetler family. All right, let's get back in the Jeep. And we're actually going to drive along Bloody Springs Road to what's called Fort Road, conveniently called Fort Road, and that's where Fort Northkill is located, or as close as we'll be able to get to it. So let's get back in Naomi and get on moving again. All right, so here we are driving on Bloody Spring Road. Of course, who knows if this road was even around back then? It may have just been a trail or a path of some sort. This was the frontier at that time. So there would have been a number of homesteads along this route that were attacked. All right, so we are looking for Fort Road. That'll take us to the Fort Northkill. Is Fort Road. It just kind of loops around and rejoins Bloody Spring. But on the other end of the loop is where Fort Northkill is. Once again, you can see the blue mountain up there ahead of us. All right, we should be nearing the historical marker. I think it's just a sign. I don't know if there's an older like stone marker. This is another one that's on private property, so we won't be able to go to the exact location. But from what I've read, there is a cellar hole, or a shallow cellar hole, where the fort was. Everything's clearly posted around here. So, but down this way should be the... I was here. Oh, is that the... I think here it is, yep. I'm just going to pull over right here. Yeah, so here is the historical marker, and it's an old one. There might be a more modern one somewhere, but yeah, 500 feet northwest to the site of Fort Northkill. So northwest, so just up in there somewhere was the site of Fort Northkill. But as you can see, it's all clearly posted. And then you can see the mountain off in the distance. So let me tell you a little bit about Fort Northkill. Of course, we were at Fort Henry earlier, and that was a larger fort. And the next fort over, which we're not getting to today, was Fort Lebanon. I think sometimes it was called Fort William. Those are two larger ones, and Fort Northkill was between the two of them. As I mentioned in previous videos, they try to have these forts roughly every 12 or so miles along this mountain ridge. That way the troops could travel, 12 miles, they could do 12 miles in a day easily from fort to fort. So Fort Northkill is sometimes more just like a station. Like I said, Fort Henry and Fort Lebanon were the larger forts, or maybe the troops were stationed longer, and then Fort Northkill was just kind of like a layover spot as they went from Henry to Lebanon, perhaps. So it wasn't a major, it was one of the smaller forts. But it was still important. And that might account, since it was a smaller one, that might account for why there was more massacres and raids in this area. Because remember I mentioned where the farm that I grew up on was never attacked, and I don't remember reading about attacks in that area, probably because of Fort Henry, one of the larger forts, was located just up the road from it. So, location of Fort Northkill. And it has a relationship, the other fort we're visiting today, Fort Dietrich Snyder, it has a relationship with that fort that is actually up on the mountain, and that's where we're going next. And that's the one we can actually walk to. It's on public land. So these Fort Dietrich Snyder and Fort Northkill actually kind of work together in tandem a little bit. But we'll talk more about that when we get up there. That's where I'll tell you. That's where I'm going to tell you about the Hostetler family. Once again, if you do come here, just respect this is private property. There, you can check out the historical marker, but don't go wandering off in the woods looking for it. All right, so let's get back in the Jeep. All right, so let's make our way to Fort Dietrich Snyder. I gotta make my way to Route 183. Actually, we're gonna get back on Bloody Spring Road to 183. That'll take us to the top of the mountain. And there's a small gap up there in the mountain, which the Indians used to come over, which is why Fort Dietrich Snyder is up there. But we got to get up there first. And I will go ahead and throw a map up now too of where Fort Northkill is located roughly. So we are on the highway now, Route 183. We got to go up to the top of the mountain. Should be able to see the mountain up there in the distance. And this was another location where the Indians used to come up over the mountain for those Indian raids. The Appalachian Trail runs up along here. So we'll actually be using the Appalachian Trail to get to Fort Dietrich Snyder. Yeah, almost at the top. I actually have to go down the other side of the mountain a little bit and then turn around and come back up so I can park on the other side of the highway here. Yeah, you can see a few cars parked up there. That's where we got to go. All right, I'll see you there once I turn around. Alright, so I've parked along the highway there, Route 183, and this is the Appalachian Trail. So let's head up to Fort Dietrich Snyder. There are some other ruins up here too. There's the ruins of an old hotel from that time era. And if you're still with me, I did bring along channel sticker number 9. I'm going to place it up at the location of the fort. It's pretty gushy up here. There's a monument up here for the fort, but the monument is not right where the fort is located. So I'll show you where that is. And I'll also tell you about the Hostetlers up here. A little more quieter up here, well, once we get away from the traffic. Yeah, so you should see the white blazes for the AT. So we'll get some exercise in for this video. I hear the wood frogs out here too. Alright, so let's start talking about the Hostetlers. You might still hear a little bit of traffic back there. I don't know if you can hear the wood frogs back there. Maybe not. But the Hostetler massacre is also known as the Northkill Amish massacre. And if you're familiar at all with Pennsylvania, we have a lot of Mennonite and Amish. You know, they're a group of Christianity, I guess you could say. They have their own unique beliefs. A lot of them are pacifists. They don't believe in being aggressive. You know, a lot of them don't fight in wars and things like that. And that plays into this story. And we still have Amish in this area today. You see them, they're the ones that drive around in horse and buggies. They don't drive cars. It's quite a common sight in this area yet. But anyway, let's talk about the Hochstetler family. So they were here during the French and Indian War. And one evening, I think they had a bunch of people over during the day doing something with apples. I think they had a bunch of people over. But later that evening, when everybody was gone and they were in bed, either the dog was barking or the dog made a weird noise. And the one son, I think it was the oldest son, Jacob, went out to check out what was going on. And, well, he found out what was going on. They were under attack. One of the Indians shot him in the leg, but he was able to get back in the house, lock the door. Everybody figured out what was going on, and they knew they were under attack. It was the father and his wife. There were 3 sons and a daughter. I don't know the daughter's name, they didn't mention. And there was another girl with them at the time. I think her name was Barbara, but I never read an account that ever mentioned what ended up happening to her. So that was a family, father, husband, 3 sons, and a daughter. So there were about 8 to 10 Indians in the attack. And once the Hochstetlers barred themselves up in the house, the Indians were just kind of standing out there trying to figure out what to do. And it was at that point that the Hochstetlers could have defended themselves. They had guns, you know, not like we have today, but, you know, the old flintlock rifles and things. But since the dad, you know, they're Amish, the dad insisted that they don't defend themselves, that they don't take another human life, even if their own life was threatened. And, you know, that's what they believed. You know, this story isn't about whether you agree with it or not. It's just a story. So they did not. They had an opportunity there to take out some of their enemies, but they didn't. And in the end, they kind of paid the price for that. The sons did disagree with the father. The sons wanted to attack. They could have, you know, fired through the windows, but the dad was insistent. And it is what it is. All right. So the Indians decided to burn the house down. They couldn't get in the house, so they decided to burn it down. The family hid themselves in a basement for most of the night. And then I guess they had apple cider in the basement, and when the fire started to burn through the floorboards, they just threw apple cider on it to put the fire out. And then they waited till morning, and they thought all the Indians were gone, and they were all gone except for one. And that's when they started to crawl out of there was like a window to the basement. They started to crawl out. And that's when the one Indian that had stayed behind, I think to eat peaches or something, he alerted the others. They all came back, realized that the family was in the basement, and that's when things got ugly. So the rest of the Indians came back. The family had already started coming out. The Indians pulled the rest of them out the window. They had trouble getting the wife or the mom out. The story calls her, says she was very fleshy, which I think you can interpret what that means. They had a little difficulty with her. But yeah, that's when the massacre part of it started. The oldest son, Jacob, they killed, and the daughter they killed, the son that was wounded from the gunshot. Don't know why they killed those, maybe because he's wounded, don't know why they killed the daughter. They killed the wife, but the father, Jacob, and the 2 sons, well, one son initially they took captive, Christian. Actually, there was a younger son, Joseph, who actually ran off at first. But then he circled around and came back to watch what happened, and I think he ended up getting captured anyway. So Jacob and 2 of his sons, Christian and Joseph, ended up being taken captive. And the rest of the family was killed. Like I said, I don't remember what happened to the friend that was along, Barbara. Alright, we've come to a split in the trail here. I'll finish the story later. Alright, so like I said, we are on the Appalachian Trail, which comes from, if you go back that way, that'll take you back to the highway. There you can see the white blaze. This part of the trail can be a little confusing. There's a split and it's not well marked. If you want to stay on the Appalachian Trail, you need to turn right here. And the marker for the fort is just down there. You could go left, which is where you can hear the frogs. We might actually take a quick peek at them. There's actually a pond up here on top of the mountain. But if you want to see some other ruins, there are some up here. Let's just quick take a peek. Let me turn you off. I gotta get around this mess here. Yeah, so down here are some ruins. This is actually the old highway that went over the mountain. I think down near the bottom it's called Old Mountain Road. And we were just on 183 earlier, that's where we parked, but this was the original road that came up over the mountain. You can see it going down that way. And there was an old hotel along here. I think it was called the Blue Mountain Hotel. I mean, not necessarily like hotels we think of today, but you know, a place for travelers to stay. Looks like the old well. There's my shadow. The old well is still there. But there's a few remains of it. And I think some people confuse this with Fort Detrick Snyder, but it's not. I think there's some steps back here. Since we're here, let's just take a quick look. It's history. Yeah, there's some steps. So this is probably the main where he went up into the old hotel. Of course, finding this is what helped me to find where the fort is located. Because the fort is to the north of these ruins. Alright, there's that well again. So this is history up here as well. Then you hear those frogs. Let's just take a quick detour and check them out. Then let's go to the fort. Alright, so they might stop once we get up here. But you can hear them. Those are wood frogs. All right, we'll let them go. They're doing their thing out there. You can probably see someone splashing around. All right, let's get to the fort. So once again, here's that split in the trail. We were just down that way to the ruins of that hotel and the pond. Like I said, if you want to stay on the AT, you turn right. Got a white blaze on that tree. That's a newer blaze. Then just up ahead is the monument or Fort Detrick Snyder, but not the exact location of it. Just walk up here together. So the Appalachian Trail actually turns to the left here, goes past the monument, and that old highway they talked about goes down this way. There's actually a blue blaze trail that takes you to a spring down there. But here is the marker, or the monument. 1755, site of Fort Detrick Snyder, a lookout post to warn of the approach of enemies in the French and Indian War. And you can see the white blaze for the Appalachian Trail continues on that way. But we're not going that way. Alright, so once again, there is the marker. The AT goes on that way, and back there is where we came from. Of course, the AT would go that way, and the old hotel was that way. But to get to the fort, what's left of it, you need to go to the right here, or straight, and there's a blue blazed trail. It takes you to a spring that people who hike the Appalachian Trail use. It's very wet down here, because you can get water right here. But we're going to go down this blue blaze trail for a bit. And eventually the blue blaze trail will hook off to the left. That's where our fort is. But let me finish the story of the Hochstetlers. We're not done yet. The massacre is over, but we've got to finish that story up. Yes, all three of the captives, Jacob the father, Christian, and Joseph, did all either escape or were released at some point. Jacob the father escaped. He was all the way up in like Erie or in Detroit, Michigan, Erie, Pennsylvania. And he escaped one day, found the headwaters of the Susquehanna River, the west branch of the Susquehanna River, and made a raft and sailed on down. Not sailed, but floated on down to Fort Harris, or present-day Harrisburg. Of course, the account recognizes he probably passed several other forts, like Fort Augusta, Fort Hunter. Not sure why he didn't stop at those, but he made it all the way down to Fort Harris. Christian was returned in 1764 at the same time that some of the other captives I've talked about returned. It was at the end of what was called Pontiac's War, and there was the Indians were forced to give up the captives they had taken. That's when Barbara Leininger, that's when Regina Leininger was released, and that was another boy we had talked about in the previous video. So that's when Christian got home, and Joseph, it was a lot less about Joseph. Joseph was fully adopted into the native by one of the families, and I don't know, it doesn't really say much more about him if he ever returned to his former life or not. So I'm not sure what to say about him. But the three eventually were, I think Christian did make it back to his family. Not sure about Joseph though. So that is their story. Alright, let's continue on. And like I said, I'm going to hide that. I have channel sticker 9 I'm going to place down here. Gotta find a place to put it then. So I'm continuing down that blue blazed trail. You can see the blue blazes clearly on the trees. And up ahead here, there's a double blaze on the tree. That means the trail turns. Of course, that top blaze should be staggered to the left, indicating that the trail turns to the left. And down there's a log down there that has a blue arrow saying that the trail goes that way. And it takes you to a spring. But right here is a cellar hole. There's another little hole right there. But this is where Fort Dietrich Snyder was located. So we'll talk a little bit about this. It's not one of the normal forts. That's all that's left. But it's something. Compared to a lot of the places we go, we can actually see something here. Not sure what this was. If this was maybe, you know, like a root cellar or maybe a collapsed well. So let's just talk a little bit about Fort Dietrich Snyder. This was not one of the commissioned forts that they built. Most of the forts we've been talking about that are along that ridge line or on this side of the hill were commissioned to be built by the colonial government. This one was there was an existing house here that they used. They turned it into they built like a stockade around it, or like sometimes they call it a blockhouse. But they would have built like a stockade around it to protect it. But it was an already existing home. Someone lived here, and they kind of used it. There was not a ton of soldiers that stayed here, but there was probably a small company soldiers that stayed up here. And this was like, as a monument said, this was kind of a lookout fort. Like I said, it worked in conjunction with Fort Northkill, maybe some of the other forts. Fort Henry isn't too far away that way. But if they saw, because like I said, this is the main road over here, the main highway, which probably was an Indian trail back then too. But if they noticed a raiding party coming up this way, one of the soldiers would take off and down the other side of the mountain to Fort Northkill to let them know that a raiding party was on its way. Now with those raiding parties, you didn't necessarily see, you know, a whole group of Native Americans coming up this trail, but you would have seen the evidence. From up here you can see to the north and to the south. And there was settlements on both sides, not too many to the north, but a few. But as the attacks went on, you know, they would burn people's homes and stuff, and you could see the smoke from those homes. So up here you could see them like either that way or that way. They probably like little lookouts. And that's another advantage to having a little lookout fort up here, because they could see if they saw smoke over there or back that way, they could run down, let the main fort down at the bottom know, hey, there's an attack underway. And that's another purpose of this fort up here. Like I said, a lookout fort. And after the war, it continued to be lived in. But I think I remember reading that when that hotel up there that we looked at earlier was built, this was still here, and that one replaced this home. And at some point they tore this one down, unfortunately. Of course, who knows if it would have survived that long. You know, those old log homes just up here in the middle of nowhere just don't survive. Right, but here it is. Let me show you one more time. Let me walk around a little bit. Yeah, so here's that blue arrow. It does say spring on there. And the trail to the spring takes you right past Here's that, you can clearly see that old cellar hole. Now if you come here in the summer, you won't see anything because all this thorny brush will be, you know, filled with foliage. I mean, over here you might be able to see a cellar hole, but yeah, there it is. What remains of Fort Dietrich Snyder. So it's cool to actually come to a place and actually see the spot. And this is on public land, so you can come up here and check it out. Here we are walking into the cellar area. Yeah, so as a history person, it's cool to think that in 1756 there were, you know, soldiers, you know, colonial soldiers or volunteers maybe from the local area stationed in here as a lookout, just waiting for, you know, an imminent attack from enemies. Who knows what all they did in here. They probably got kind of bored up here too sometimes. They probably gambled a lot, played cards. Yeah, now it's this. Yeah, so I almost forgot about channel sticker number 9. I was ready to make my outro and end this video, but so I have number 9 for Fort Dietrich Snyder. I found a little place to stash it. I'll show you that in a moment. Glad I remembered. Alright, so let me show you where this channel sticker is. So right there's the double blazes for this trail. Down there is the log that has the arrow on it for the trail to go that way, but right over here is the old basement area. Right there's a smaller hole. So if you come up here, right, and there's the basement area, but just this side there's 3 moss covered rocks. The one right there, the channel sticker is under there. So it's up here if you want it. I should mention that channel sticker number 8 was found. The one I placed up in Ridley Creek State Park, but that cemetery was damaged by a tornado. So I will go ahead and post his picture. He found it the next morning after, actually several other people went looking for it that day. But he got there first. I forget your name offhand, but I will show you his picture. He got there first. And so same with this one, channel sticker number 9. If you're the one that finds it, if you go ahead and let me know, send me a picture of yourself with it, and I will share it in a future video, just like I did the last one. Alright, like I said, this is public land, so you're free to come up here. Alright, but it's up there if you want it. Beautiful place. Beautiful piece of history that you're checking out if you come up here. Walk back in time. So that'll be it for this video then. Thanks for walking along with me a little bit, listening to my stories, driving around, and I hope you notice an improvement in the audio quality while I'm driving. I got a little microphone that I can use right near my mouth to talk while I'm driving, so it sounds a little bit better. Hopefully that turned out alright. Alright, so yeah, as always, thanks for coming along, and I'll see you in the next video.